Debt Snowball versus Debt Avalanche. Which one actually gets you out of debt faster? Two people, same income, same total amount of debt, same city. One of them walks away completely free in 31 months. The other is still making payments 4 years later, having handed nearly $3,000 extra dollars to creditors for no reason other than one decision made at the very beginning of the process. That decision was not about income. It was not about willpower. It was not about getting lucky with a windfall or an inheritance. It was about method. And the method you choose when you decide to get serious about debt will determine not just how fast you get out, but how much of your own money you keep along the way. Most people who commit to paying off debt make the same first mistake. They throw extra money at whatever feels most urgent. One month they pay extra on one card, the next month on another, and after 6 months of genuine effort, the balances look almost identical to where they started. The money moved, the debt stayed. That is not a discipline problem. That is the absence of a system. What you are about to learn is not a motivational concept. It is a mechanical choice, one with measurable consequences and clear advantages depending on who you are and how you are wired. There are two methods that have been studied, tested, and used by millions of Americans to eliminate debt completely. They work differently. They feel different in practice. And choosing the wrong one for your personality can quietly undermine your progress even when you are doing everything else right. The debt snowball was popularized by financial educator Dave Ramsey, and the name tells you exactly how it operates. You list every single debt you carry, from the smallest balance to the largest, completely ignoring the interest rate attached to each one. You make the minimum payment on everything except that smallest balance. On that one account, you throw every available extra dollar you have. When that balance reaches zero, you take the full amount you were paying toward it, the minimum plus the extra, and you roll the entire payment into the next smallest debt on your list. The payment grows with every debt you eliminate, exactly like a snowball picking up mass as it rolls downhill. Here is what that looks like with actual numbers. You have a credit card with a $400 balance, a car loan at $3,200, and a student loan sitting at $11,000. You set the interest rates aside entirely and attack the $400 credit card first. You eliminate it in weeks, not months. Then you roll that payment into the car loan. Then you roll both combined into the student loan. Each time you clear a balance, your attack payment gets larger and the next target falls faster. The reason this works has nothing to do with math and everything to do with human behavior. Paying off a complete balance, no matter how small, produces a measurable sense of forward movement. That feeling is not a luxury. It is the fuel that keeps most people in the plan long enough to actually finish it. And finishing is the only outcome that counts. The debt avalanche operates on a completely different principle. Instead of ranking your debts by balance size, you rank them by interest rate. The highest rate moves to the front of the line, regardless of the balance attached to it. You make minimum payments on every debt except the one with the highest interest rate. Every extra dollar you have goes toward that one account and stays there until the balance reaches zero. When it is cleared, you roll the full payment into the debt with the next highest rate and continue the sequence without stopping. Mathematically, the avalanche is almost always the cheaper route. By targeting the highest interest rate first, you cut off the most expensive part of your debt load before it compounds further. Depending on how your rates and balances are distributed, this approach can save you hundreds or even thousands of dollars compared to the snowball over the full course of your payoff. Most explanations of these two methods stop right there. They show the math, They declare the avalanche the winner, and they move on. That conclusion is correct on paper, but it is incomplete in practice, and that incompleteness is where people make their most consequential mistake. Because the method that looks best on a spreadsheet is not always the one that actually carries you to zero. And here is exactly why. The avalanche is mathematically optimal. The snowball is psychologically optimal. And for the majority of people, psychology is what determines whether the plan gets finished or abandoned somewhere in the middle. This is not a theory. Research on consumer financial behavior consistently identifies the same pattern. The most common reason people fail to complete debt payoff plans is not that money ran out. It is that motivation ran out. They made payments for 6 or 8 months on a high-interest balance, watched the number barely move, and stopped. Not because they gave up on the idea of being debt-free, because nothing in their day-to-day experience was confirming that the plan was actually working. The snowball is designed specifically to solve that problem. It delivers wins early and repeatedly. It shows you, in concrete terms, that the process is producing real results. That early momentum is not a minor psychological benefit. It is frequently the difference between a plan that sustains itself for 2 years and a plan that collapses after 3 months of quiet frustration. So how do you decide which one belongs in your hands? If your interest rates are relatively close to one another, the mathematical difference between the two methods is small. In that situation, the snowball is almost always the stronger choice because the psychological advantage is real and the financial cost of choosing it is minimal. If you carry a single debt with a dramatically higher rate than everything else, something in the range of 20% or above, and the balance on that debt is not your largest, the avalanche makes a compelling case. The compounding cost of that rate is significant enough that targeting it first produces meaningful savings, even if the early months feel slow. And for some people, the most effective approach is a hybrid. Clear one or two small balances first using snowball logic to build momentum, then shift to avalanche sequencing once the motivation engine is already running. This preserves the psychological power of early wins while capturing the mathematical efficiency of rate-based targeting for the heavier balances that remain. Whichever method you choose, both of them require the same three foundational decisions before you take a single action. The first is a complete and accurate inventory of every debt you carry, every credit card, every personal loan, every outstanding balance of any kind. For each one, you need the creditor name, the current balance, the interest rate, and the minimum monthly payment. If you do not know your interest rate, it is on your most recent statement or available the moment you log into your account. There is no acceptable reason not to have this information in front of you before building any plan. The second is your extra payment amount. This is the money that goes toward the target debt beyond all your minimum payments. It does not need to be large to matter. An extra $50 per month applied consistently to the right balance shortens your payoff timeline by months. An extra $150 per month changes the timeline in ways that most people genuinely underestimate until they run the actual numbers. The third is automation. Set every minimum payment on autopay so you are never late and never charged a penalty that undoes your progress. Direct your extra payment manually each month to the target balance. That one manual step keeps you actively aware of your forward movement. And that awareness is what sustains the behavior over the months and years it takes to complete. That is the complete operational structure of both methods. But before you start, there is one calculation that most people skip entirely, and it is the one that will change how urgently you treat every extra dollar you find. Pull up the most recent statement for any credit card you carry. Find two specific numbers, the total minimum payment due and the interest charge applied during that billing cycle. Subtract the interest from the minimum payment. What remains is the dollar amount that actually went toward reducing your balance. For a $5,000 balance at 22% annual percentage rate, with a minimum payment of $100, the interest charge for that month is approximately $91. $100 in, $91 to the creditor, $9 off the principal. At that pace, that $5,000 balance does not disappear in a year. It does not disappear in 5 years. It takes over 30 years to eliminate at minimum payments only. And by the time it is gone, you have paid more than $14,000 for something that originally cost $5,000. That is not a worst-case scenario. That is the contractual design of how minimum payments function. The minimum payment is not a path to zero. It is a mechanism built specifically to extend the life of the debt and maximize the interest collected by the issuer over as many years as possible. Once you see that number, the gap between what you pay and what actually reduces your balance, the extra payment stops feeling like a financial goal. It becomes the entire point of the exercise. And that shift in how you see the problem is what separates people who plan to get out of debt from people who actually do. The snowball and the avalanche are both real systems built on sound logic. Both produce results when followed with consistency. The right choice is the one you will sustain for the full length of the plan. If you need visible progress to stay committed month after month, start with the snowball. If you have the patience to hold focus on a long-term target without an early win, and you carry at least one debt with a rate significantly higher than the others, the avalanche will cost you less over time. If you are genuinely not sure which type of person you are, use the hybrid and let your own behavior over the first few months tell you what fits. What matters most is not the perfection of the method you select today. What matters is that you build the list, identify the extra payment amount, automate the minimums, and start. Consistency over months is what eliminates debt, not theoretical optimization. The next video goes directly into credit card debt, because credit card interest operates under a specific set of rules that most people fundamentally misunderstand. And those misunderstandings are costing real money every single month. That video is next. This content is for educational purposes only. It does not constitute financial advice. Always conduct your own research before making any financial decision.